one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device.
Yeah.
But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in the form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose, as a practitioner or surgeon, very carefully, and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible. And sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very good morning to you. I'm Sophie Reaper alongside the fabulous Adam Cherry, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Very good morning to you. It's great to be with you. Lots coming your way this morning, so let's take a look. Now, in the last few moments, 4 more Israeli hostages set to be released by Hamas imminently. Here's the scene in Gaza and Tel Aviv. Of course, we'll keep you up to date throughout the show.
So Keir Starmer has defied President Donald Trump by announcing further support for Ukraine and fresh sanctions on Russia. We'll be discussing that, plus President Trump's comments overnight shortly.
Meanwhile, is Britain quietly slipping back under EU control? Well, The Telegraph reports that Sir Keir Starmer is considering aligning Britain with the European Union on agricultural and food safety rules.
Well, that comes as the CPAC conference has been taking place in Maryland this week, with Elon Musk making headlines and President Trump himself labelling himself as king. US political commentator Nelson Aspen will join us to take in all of that.
And in a new crackdown from the Labour government, benefits claimants may be forced to open up their bank accounts to the government. Is this a good move to prevent benefit fraudsters, or is it an invasion of privacy? Of course, we'll be debating all that.
I'm sure that will get quite heated.
I'm sure it will.
And an incredible story of 2 very talented siblings. Paul reached the summit of Mount Everest last year with his son. Meanwhile, his sister Fiona has just won a 3,000-mile rowing race across the Atlantic. They'll both be here to share more about their incredible feat.
And we'll have all of the day's top stories with news editor at Guido Fawkes, Max Young, and political commentator Eve McQuillian. There they are. Max is looking at his phone, but that's fine, no problem. Welcome to Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
That was charming as always.
Max is giving me daggers from across the room. I've known Max for a while, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Now, today's show has got a little bit of an Orwellian theme to it. It's very 1984. We're going to be talking all things Big Brother, aren't we, Adam?
We are, yeah. There's a lot of that sort of stuff swimming around. So Cardiff using facial recognition at the Six Nations. As we just mentioned in the headlines there, perhaps in a benefits crackdown, the government looking at your bank accounts. And then Apple as well, having to provide a back door to everyone's data through iCloud. I mean, it's quite a lot, and I think, you know what, I'd be really interested to hear what you guys at home think about that, because there's a lot to stick our teeth into, I think.
Absolutely, and we also want to hear your peak of the week. We want to know what your favourite moment of the last 7 days has been. You can send those in at gbnews.com/yoursay or gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, before we do anything else, of course, Sophia Hill has all your news headlines.
Very good morning. It's just gone 10 o'clock. Here are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. Breaking news in Gaza as Hamas prepare to release 4 more hostages with the Red Cross standing by. You're seeing live pictures on your screen now. They're at the second location in Nusrat, Gaza. Now, Israeli hostages, Tal Shoham and Avera Mengistu, were handed over to the Red Cross earlier this morning. Those being handed back imminently are the last living hostages from a group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal that took effect on January 19th. This comes as Israel's army have reported that the body of Hamas hostage Shiri Bibas has been identified. They say it's likely she was killed in captivity with her 2 young sons. The Foreign Secretary has called Hamas's failure to return the right body of an Israeli hostage sick and abhorrent. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to confirm a timeline to raise defence spending as he prepares to travel to Washington to meet Donald Trump next week. Reports suggest he will invite his counterpart to the UK for a state visit. The Prime Minister will have to walk a tricky line stateside, balancing the UK's support for Ukraine with the need to keep the US on side. This comes as President Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir Starmer of doing nothing to end the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, he also said Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together, and he thinks a peace deal can be done. Back in the UK, a major police search is underway for a runner who's been missing for 3 days. Jenny Hall was last seen in County Durham just after 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Police officers say they are becoming increasingly concerned. Anyone who believes they have any relevant information is being asked to contact the police. And at least 3 people, including a child, have been killed as the roof of a shopping centre has collapsed in Peru. At least 29 others were injured as the Real Plaza Mall in Trujillo, according to the Peruvian government. Real Plaza, which operates a chain of shopping centres across 13 cities in Peru, said it would close all of its businesses today as a mark of respect. And it's a Saturday showdown in the Six Nations today as England takes on Scotland in the Calcutta Cup and Wales are to play Ireland in Cardiff. Scotland's fly-half Finn Russell has been passed fit to start today's game against England after recovering from a nasty head knock in Scotland's round 2 loss to Ireland. Meanwhile, Ireland's hooker Dan Sheehan says Ireland will need to knuckle down to basics as they continue their Guinness Six Nations title quest. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning. Now to events in Gaza. Hamas is expected to release 4 more hostages in return for more than 600 Palestinian prisoners. 2 have already been released. You're looking at live pictures now, including one Israeli who was taken on October the 7th and another who crossed into Gaza over a decade ago. Israeli hostages Tal Shoham and Avera Mengistu were handed over to the Red Cross earlier this morning. Those being handed over now are the last living hostages from a group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal that took place on the 19th of January. Of course, we'll bring you more on this story as we get it. It's obviously a live and developing situation.
And just to add, we believe the names of those 4 set to be released are Elia Cohen, Omer Shem Tov, Omer Wenkert and Hisham Al-Sayed. Those are the 4 that we are expecting to be released very shortly on those live pictures that you can see if you're watching on television.
Yeah, and as I say, as this develops, we'll bring you the latest here on GB News. Now, moving on, because Sir Keir Starmer has defied President Donald Trump by announcing further support for Ukraine and fresh sanctions on Russia.
That comes as the US President condemns the Prime Minister and French President Emmanuel Macron for not doing anything to end the Ukraine-Russia war just days before they're due to visit the White House.
Well, earlier, President Zelensky has apparently conceded to Washington's demands and is expected to sign a mineral deal as part of an ongoing peace deal negotiation. And when Trump was challenged on whether both leaders were dictators, here is what the US President had to say.
I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together because, you know what, we want to stop killing millions of people.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is political commentator Theo Usherwood. Theo, thank you very much for joining us. Prime Minister's in a bit of a tricky position here, isn't he? He's trying to act as the bridge between Europe and the US without isolating. He's trying to delicately balance, trying to get my words out, these two powers. How can he manage that? What's he going to say to Donald Trump next week?
Well, I think the problem that Keir Starmer is going to have is that obviously he said that there's going to be increased aid for Ukraine, and he wants further sanctions against Russia. But from the White House's point of view, there is a danger, of course, that they see this as extending the war in Ukraine. As you heard from Donald Trump there last night, he's absolutely adamant that he wants this war to come to an end, providing more military aid. And John Healey, the Defence Secretary, was saying this on a visit to Norway on Thursday. But providing more military aid to Ukraine is only going to extend that war. So Keir Starmer, heading to Washington next week, this could be one of the defining moments of his prime ministerialship. He's got to tread that very delicate line of trying to persuade Donald Trump that Ukraine is worth saving for Europe, but at the same time, in those talks we saw last week in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump is absolutely adamant that a deal has to be done. Russia has to be brought to the negotiating table. He succeeded in doing that. And as he was saying, Donald Trump was saying he wants elections. And if there are elections in Ukraine, there is a very distinct possibility that a pro-Putin, pro-Kremlin candidate could win those elections, and then Ukraine would, to all intents and purposes, fall under Moscow's control. And that's something that would be ultimately seen as a defeat for Western Europe and for Ukraine and its allies.
Theo, I want to ask you about Donald Trump's tweet earlier in the week in which he called President Zelensky a dictator. Now, that came as quite a shock, I think, to many people, and it's created, I think you could say, quite an inflammatory situation for Sir Keir Starmer to visit the White House. How is our Prime Minister going to go to the White House and try and tackle this now?
He's got to persuade Donald Trump that it's in America's interests not to give carte blanche to President Putin, that if President Putin were to, in effect, take over Ukraine, that he could come back and have another go at parts of Europe, Eastern Europe, what was before during the Cold War that came under the purview of Moscow. He could have another go at one of those countries. So he needs to persuade Donald Trump that it is worth him backing Europe and supporting Europe and continuing to support Europe through NATO. And I think at the same time, Keir Starmer, and when you're talking about this in your bulletins, was talking about a timeline, and this was something that a month ago, this was not on the government's anywhere near the top of the government's agenda, but setting out a timetable for hitting 2.5% of GDP on defence spending. And Keir Starmer's got to try and persuade the president that, yes, Europe is really serious about its defence, and it's not just going to rely on handouts from the United States, which, up 3-4% of their defence of GDP on their defence spending to contribute towards NATO. And if he can persuade the president that, you know, he is listening and Europe is listening to his concerns about NATO defence spending and Europe pulling its weight, then he might actually receive a fairly warm reception. But the worst thing for the Prime Minister to do, and I don't think there's any intention of doing this, by the way, in number 10, but just to go over to Washington and tell the president he's wrong and what he said about President Zelensky was wrong. He's got to try and find that middle ground and communicate to the president that, yes, he has listened, and that's why we're setting out that timetable on defence spending.
Theo, while we've got you, I just want to ask very quickly about another story, which is Apple capitulating to the UK government and opening a backdoor, removing end-to-end encryption on iCloud services. What's your take on that? Is that setting a dangerous precedent for data privacy?
I'm not. So on the one hand, you've got the government and you've got charities which are very concerned, which work, you know, like the NSPCC, which work with children, and they don't want, you know, they have very legitimate concerns about organised crime, child trafficking, sex rings, whatever, circulating images as well online, and being able to do that because these platforms are encrypted, and therefore you can't get in, you know, the authorities can't get into them and track down these criminals. And that's why the government has brought this case, because they want to know, they want to be able to get access. On the other hand, you've got civil liberties groups which are saying, well, actually, you know, people need to have this encryption because they've got bank details, they've got personal information which is perfectly legal, and they don't want that to be, you know, they don't want that to fall to the victim of hackers. I was saying, I think it was a tweet from your own Tom Harwood who explained this really well. Yeah. And apologies, Tom, if I've got this wrong, but it's the sort of thing he'd tweet, was that you can't create a back door for the good guys. That you either have end-to-end encryption or you don't have end-to-end encryption. And at the moment, none of the platforms, whether it be Apple or Meta or any of these companies, they haven't developed a way, and there is no way to say, OK, we've got encryption that keeps people from hacking your private data, whether it be your bank details or whatever. But at the same time, we can give a code to the likes of the UK government or the American authorities or whatever, which allows them to access these particular details. And at the moment, there isn't that middle ground. And so the concern is that, yes, OK, Apple have decided to perfectly, you know, they made the decision to acquiesce to the UK government on this, but that will mean that our data can become more vulnerable to hackers who want to access it to get our bank details or whatever. And that's the concern.
Yeah, I think it's a real slippery slope. Theo, thank you very much for joining us. That was Theo Ushwood there. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us. Now, should we move on? Because we've got two distinguished guests here to go through the top political stories of the day. Well, the top headlines. We have Eve McQuillian and Max Young. So, should we jump in, or do we want to do our peaks of the week? Yeah, actually, let's very quickly do that.
I have to say, people have been very quick today coming in. We've got one from Sarah S, who says, peak of the week, being able to walk properly again after foot surgery 5 weeks ago. The post-surgery boot is off, trainers on, and I can drive again. Just need some vitamin D now. Good for you, Sarah. Very happy to hear that. And so keep them coming and keep them sending those in to us. Adam, your peak of the week?
Yeah, pretty mundane week. I bought some new pillows, which are very comfortable, so I'm getting slightly better sleep.
Sleep is so important.
It is.
In this job especially.
It is, and I'm sleeping much better. I'm sure everyone will be pleased to hear. But that was my peak of the week. Pretty small.
My peak of the week this week is a little bit personal, but I wanted to share it regardless. I found out yesterday that I don't have cancer. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I have been undergoing some tests, and I learned yesterday that it's brilliant news. I'm in the clear. And the reason I'm sharing this as my peak of the week, I was a bit uncertain because it's quite a private story for me, this. Yeah. But it was cervical cancer I was being tested for. And I want to be a bit of an advocate for young women like me. I'm only 27. This was my second ever smear test, and they found something. So ladies out there, no matter what age you are, the second they invite you for your smear test, it is so, so important that you go, because you just never know, no matter what age it is. So that's my peak of the week.
Yeah, and thank God.
Quite emotional, yes.
Yeah, but you're in the clear, which you're all very happy about. But obviously, the message is really important.
But yes, so if you're a young lady out there, please, I know it's a bit awkward, I know it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's so, so important that you do that. So that's my message of the week and a good peek of the week.
Yeah, well, yes.
There we are. Sorry, Tiz. I feel I've blown your pillows a little bit.
That was a bit like...
Sorry. But think it's an important message.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, well, but I'm sleeping well, which is the really good news, obviously.
Well, I'm sleeping well now as well.
Yeah, I bet you are, exactly. No, great, but absolutely.
But we're bringing our two panellists now.
Good morning, guys.
Peeps of the week.
Morning.
Gosh, I can't top that, can I? Well, mine hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to Colombia on Sunday, so there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's a great peak of the week.
Great peak, yeah.
Definitely something to look forward to.
Definitely.
How long are you there?
A couple of weeks. My friend's living there at the moment, so I'm
I was going to ask business or pleasure, but clearly pleasure.
Good old friend.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Where are you going? Bogota, Medellin? What's the plan?
Bogota, and then down to the coast.
Oh,
so we're going to go to the carnival.
I'm very envious.
So I'll send you pictures from the carnival.
Please do. Max, your pick of the week?
Well, I discovered the double chicken wrap at Nando's. Well, this is a fantastic
the best
meal.
time.
Nando's Camberwell is a sort of glorious rotunda. And I just sit there for hours, tucking into this wrap, and I'm going to get it every time from now on. It's really good.
That is a big wrap.
Lubricated with a few beers, of course, but, you know. So that was my Wednesday. And my Thursday, too.
Wow.
You went twice?
Well, you know, I'm a loyal
Well,
I've got to make use of the Nando's card, right? So there you go.
Very true, very true.
OK, should we move on to do some actual news now?
Yes.
That'd be
let's...
that's very good. What, it's medium spice?
Oh. Medium spice, yeah. Sometimes hot if I'm feeling.
Feeling adventurous.
So whilst we're here, let's...
Keep sending your peaks of the week in. You can email them in at gbviews@gbnews.com. If you've got any pictures that you'd like to share with us as well, we'd love to see the pictures of your peak of the week. Or you can send them in on your say on the GB News website. So keep them coming in. We'll be reading them out throughout the show.
Yeah, cool. Right, where do you want to go to first, guys? Because we're looking at the headlines here. Well, I mean, we've just talked about the privacy row and with Apple and the backdoor to what used to be your encrypted data.
Does anyone support this?
No.
Is anyone here in favour? I think it's a catastrophe, isn't it?
The problem is, of course, if they create this backdoor for the UK government, that now exists for other more repressive governments.
Which is what Theo Usher was saying as well, right?
Yeah.
It's such a slippery slope. I suppose the counter argument is it's really effective at catching the bad guys in the UK. That's why they're doing it. Yeah. But the broader principle of data privacy is fundamental here, isn't it? So, Max, what you're saying?
I think it's worth pointing out that a specific backdoor hasn't been created for the UK government. That's what the Home Office wanted. Yeah. They served Apple with what's called a technical capability notice in order for this to be created. And funnily enough, the legal order attached to that means that Apple couldn't talk about it. So it was a secret story that was picked up by the Washington Post. Then even we couldn't talk about it in the UK in the press. Yeah. But instead of creating this backdoor, which obviously set a terrible precedent, Apple's just withdrawn that data protection altogether. So that is actually even worse. Yeah. So now, I mean, so the Five Eyes actually got together and said, for the first time last year, you guys, everyone should use end-to-end encryption because this is the age of the scammer, the fraudster and the hacker, and it's really dangerous now. Apart from the UK. So the UK was one of the five. Yeah. So you've got the Snoopers Charter's now basically rolling forward again, and we've got the Cooper's Charter now. And it's terrible news. Terrible news for everyone, you know? It's not nothing to hide, nothing to fear. That's not how we should operate.
Do you think there's a chance, put this to both of you, do you think there's a chance that they row back on this? It's too late?
No chance at all.
Really?
Do you think then we're going to see a move away from Apple? People may be looking for other...
Well, if the government is pushing for this with Apple, they're going to be pushing this with the other tech giants as well. Yeah. So I don't think so.
Good point.
Yeah.
And the criminals and the paedophiles that are actually trying to protect illicit data just won't use Apple. The people that are at risk are like Auntie Maud, 58, who doesn't know any better, who will get her bank details taken off her. It's just ridiculous.
Well, positive start to the morning, and we've got some more Big Brother stuff later.
We did say it was Big Brother themed, didn't we?
Shall
we move on to another story now, Eve? Shall we talk about this on the front page of the Financial Times about London restaurants hitting customers with a £100 minimum spend charge? That Nando's wrap is going to get quite expensive, Max. What do you make of that? Is that a good thing or not?
Can you get through 100 quid at Nando's, Max?
Certainly can. It's very easy.
Incredibly easy.
Quite pricey.
Really?
Yeah.
You all need to come for a meal up north because honestly, that's a rarity, really.
Oh, yeah, honestly, it's once you get the hummus in there and you. Let's move on. Let's move on.
What a free PR for Nando's this morning.
Other restaurants are available.
Eve, what do you think? Do you support this?
I see their problem. I don't support it, but I see their problem. When you have apps that make it very easy for people to book places and you then have people not turning up, That is frustrating for a business. They've got empty tables, they've tried to fill it up, and they're turning people away, and they can't run a business like that.
They're calling it reservation squatting, aren't they?
Reservation squatting.
Yes.
It's frustrating, it's annoying. It's a shame that they resorted to this, and I think, you know, £100 is a bit extreme, but I do understand where it's come from.
That will probably hurt their bottom line even more, you'd think, wouldn't you? It does seem far too excessive. Max, what do you think?
I quite like the idea, to be honest. I think, you know, first of all, they should be able to do what they want, these restaurants, right? It's true. And so you've got influencers coming in, they get, you know, some small thing, take a photo with a cocktail and then they leave, which is really annoying.
But it's advertising for the business, surely.
Yeah, but there's so many of them now. And the point is, these influencers go to places that have got Michelin stars, right? So it's the Michelin star that's causing the problem, right? So a lot of restaurants actually rescinding their stars or just not accepting them in the first place because they get these hordes of people and it just ruins the authentic dining experience. The other thing is, you know, if you know that you've got 100 quid to play with because you've already put it down, you can sort of relax about the price once you get in. You say, oh, OK, well, you know, let's get to 100. It's your birthday. Let's have fun. And then, you know, you can play a little game, calculator in your head and work out, oh, maybe if I get this cocktail, I'll get this closer. So I think it works quite well, and we should probably do this in every restaurant, 100 quid minimum.
Right, so you're going to go into McDonald's and say, I would like, you know, a McFlurry
50
and then
cheeseburgers.
Yeah, 50 cheeseburgers and 10 wraps, please.
Well, I know that reservation squatting is a big issue for McDonald's around the country, especially on Valentine's Day and so on, empty tables all around.
Previously, though, what restaurants would do, or this is in my experience anyway, that they would take credit card information or debit card information, and then if you cancel the reservation within 24 hours, then you are charged. And I think that's fair enough, and that would easily prevent reservation squatting, as they're calling it. I think £100 minimum, that I agree with you in a sense, but it's going to put off other diners who perhaps... I mean, I guess it depends on the restaurant. If you've got a Michelin star, the likelihood of going and spending less than £100 is...
I mean, you sneeze and you spend 50 quid in those sorts of places, Right, OK, guys, thank you for joining us. You're going to come back later on. That was Eve and Max. We'll catch up with them in the next hour. But up next, we're going to go live to New York to catch up on all of the latest from the CPAC conference this week and hear more from Nelson Aspin. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rub it in. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, the adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, don't forget to keep sending myself and Adam all your questions about the topics in the news this week, and we're going to chat them through. We're also going to be reading out some of your peaks of the week.
Yes, so let's go through them, because I wanted to say, actually, Sophie, you mentioned your peak of the week, and people giving you, praising you for mentioning it, for bringing it up, right? So you saying that you went for your smear test and you had something, and you're all clear.
Yes.
But the point was, go and get tested, because you never know.
Absolutely. So thank you to everyone who's writing in to wish me well. That's really lovely of you. We've also had a few other peak of the weeks written in. Melanie says, my peak of the week is right here, right now, as I am enjoying, if we can just move down slightly.
Oh, sorry.
I'm enjoying a few days away in beautiful Parma, and I think we can see a picture of that now, I'm told. Oh, lovely.
Look at that.
Oh, lucky Melanie enjoying Parma there. Very nice.
Wonderful.
And we've also got one in from Darren and Sharon.
Darren and Sharon.
Of the week. I believe we can see the picture, and I know what this one is. Darren and Sharon.
Is it coming? Darren and Sharon.
They've written in to say...
There we go.
There we go. Now, that is my partner and his family, Darren and Sharon, his parents. We went for a lovely Indian in Manchester this week. So, Darren and Sharon, I know you'll be watching this morning.
Look at that.
Thank you for sending that in. It really was a peak of the week. So, thank you very, very much.
Brilliant. And we've also got a couple of others. Sarah and Nathan, our peak of the week, we just had an offer accepted on our house.
Congratulations, guys. Brilliant news.
Brilliant. So the thing there is, do you have it furnished, or do you come in and then you've got to furnish it afterwards?
I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Such a faff.
Yeah, because you're sitting there on a beanbag watching Netflix on a laptop.
Exactly.
In a totally empty room.
And we also got one from Kath. My daughter invited me for a night away together next week. Oh. We're getting close to Mother's Day. That's at the end of March, isn't it? So that'll be absolutely lovely. Enjoy, Kath.
Right, shall we move on? We've got some news.
Keep sending them in.
Yes,
keep sending them.
We're going to come back to that.
I love hearing those.
We're going to come back to that in the next hour, so absolutely right. So, in the meantime, while the CPAC conference has been going on in Maryland, President Trump has been making headlines, when is he not, for his comments on President Zelensky and Ukraine.
He has indeed. Meanwhile, Elon Musk took to the CPAC stage with a chainsaw alongside the Argentinian president. There he is, Javier Milei.
Right, well, yeah, interesting. And as the conference is set to close, President Trump also caused more controversy this week, again, when does he not, with a post on Truth Social where he declared he had saved New York from congestion, saying, long live the king. OK, well, joining us...
Very modest of him.
Typically modest of the president.
Isn't it?
Nelson Aspen joins us to discuss all of that and more. Nelson, thank you for joining us. First of all, I just want to get your thoughts on what we've seen at CPAC so far and what the Trump administration is saying about Ukraine. What do you make of their peace negotiations, so to speak?
Well, the Conservative Political Action Committee dates back to the 1970s, and it's a gathering. It's a 3-day conference in Washington, D.C. for conservative leaders. But it has sort of evolved, especially this year, in the 1 month that Donald Trump has reshaped what we perceive as the presidency of the United States. And this year it has become more of like a Comic-Con for political junkies. And that was never more apparent than in that clip you showed of Elon Musk, the president's best buddy, wielding an actual chainsaw, which he referred to as the chainsaw for democracy. And we appreciate the symbolism that, Elon's Doge committee is making cuts. Ha ha, we get the pun. But it's not so humorous for the people who are losing their jobs as a result of the Doge cuts. So there was a bit of controversy in that symbolic show. As for the Ukraine comments, I mean, this is disorienting because every day it seems to change. There's going to be a deal. There isn't going to be a deal. The one thing we know for certain is that Donald Trump wants this war, this conflict, to finally stop. He contends that it would never have happened had he been president instead of Joe Biden, and he is determined to make it end. How that will unfold unfold still remains to be seen. I'm encouraged that the retired General Keith Kellogg was sent to Ukraine as an envoy for the United States. He met also with wounded Ukraine soldiers, and he seems to be one of the last Ukraine supporters, one of the last Zelensky supporters within the Trump administration. So that encourages me that a deal will be struck soon. Whether or not that involves the precious minerals remains to be seen. The devil, of course, guys, is in the details.
Nelson, I want to ask you, you bring up Keith Kellogg there, of course, who's the US envoy to Ukraine. He's described President Zelensky as embattled and courageous leader. That's what he said this week. Meanwhile, we've heard President Trump describe him as a dictator. So what is the mood on the ground over in the US? It seems like there's conflicting opinions there within the administration.
Gosh, conflicting opinions in America between voters? That's just amazing. Well, a lot of that, you're right, depends on whose side you're on, which team are you playing for, and it's not correct to say that Zelensky is a dictator. His approval rating is higher than Trump claimed that it was. But these are, this is a Trumpian art of the deal. These are negotiating tactics. This is how Donald Trump operates. And the National Security Advisor, Waltz, believes that Zelensky will sign the minerals deal. So maybe he's just waiting it out. We will see. But I do think we're going to see results this week. One way or the other, a deal will be struck.
Nelson, what do you make of Prime Minister Keir Starmer heading to Washington to meet President Trump? What are you expecting will be the outcome of that meeting?
I think he's going to have to walk a very delicate line, as all world leaders do when they're dealing with President Trump. And that's the way it will go. But he's a diplomat in his own way, so I'm sure he'll make it right. And as I've discussed with you guys before, at the end of the day, Donald Trump is an Anglophile. He wants a good relationship with Britain.
Well, I suppose we will have to see how that goes next week, won't it? When Sir Keir Starmer goes over the Atlantic. Nelson, I want to ask you a bit about that relationship between the US and the UK. Yeah. You say Sir Keir Starmer, like many world leaders, is going to have to walk that line. President Trump is an Anglophile. How complex is that relationship? Just for our viewers at home who may not know, obviously it's a long-running relationship. Over the years, it's had its ups and downs. How difficult is that relationship?
It's very difficult, but we're going to stay friends. I'm not concerned about that. I think that the alliance between our countries is strong. I'd like to think it's unbreakable, and you just have two strong personalities. They're going to have to figure it out. And it's funny, you talked about Donald Trump proclaiming himself a king. The backstory to that is here in New York City, after years of struggling, they finally passed congestion pricing. I believe you have that in London, where people driving into the central business district pay an additional toll for the privilege of driving into the central business district. The good news is that it reduces pollution, it reduces traffic, it encourages people to use public transportation. That's the theory, but it is enormously unpopular. So Donald Trump, remember, he's a New Yorker, Donald Trump passed a proclamation, for all intents and purposes, saying that he was going to kill congestion pricing.
Nelson, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you there because we're going to go to events in Gaza. That was Nelson Aspin. Thank you very much for joining us, because Hamas is now releasing 3 more hostages in return for more than 600 Palestinian prisoners. You're looking at live footage here from Tel Aviv and Gaza. 2 have already been released, including one Israeli who was taken on October the 7th and another who crossed into Gaza over a decade ago. The 4th hostage that was due to be released, Hisham al-Sayed, will now be freed without a public ceremony later. And of course, we're going to bring you all the latest, including live footage, as we get it. But those watching on television will see a hostage being released now in Gaza, surrounded by those Hamas operatives there. And in Tel Aviv, you can see these celebrations as they leave. You can see the 2nd hostage there arriving on the stage. So they really make a ceremony out of this, don't they, Hamas? They love parading them out like this. every time.
The names of those 3 that we believe are being released, as Adam says, if you're watching on television, you can see them being released now. We believe those are Elijah Cohen, Omer Shem Tov and Omer Wenkert. As Adam also said, Hisham Al-Said, that fourth hostage, we're expecting them to be released later on today without a public ceremony. But we're seeing there, as I say, if you're watching on television, in Gaza, we're seeing those 3 Israeli hostages being released with quite a bit of pomp and circumstance. That's perhaps not the right word, but with some degree of ceremony.
Yeah.
And over in Tel Aviv, on the other side of your screen, you can see people there in Tel Aviv reacting to those releases.
Thousands of people there in Tel Aviv celebrating that. But then also, if you're listening on radio, you can see the hostage on stage, surrounded by those Hamas terrorists there. And the optics of it are just extraordinary, aren't they? They love making this. There's a sort of show-busy element to it, isn't it? It's just appalling.
And this has been obviously many weeks now. We've seen several hostages released every Saturday around this kind of time, between around 6 o'clock in the morning and midday. We've seen a few Israeli hostages released. We've also seen then later in the day hundreds of Palestinians being released as well. It just seems like it's being dragged out. That ceasefire was put in place weeks and weeks ago now, and yet we're still having the hostages and those from Palestine being released almost in dribs and drabs. I'm sure for those people on the right-hand side, if you're watching on television in Tel Aviv, that for them, they must just wish that this was all could have just happened at once, and that there was no need really for it to be dragged out. But you can see the relief on the hostages' face there on the left-hand side that finally they are being released.
After all this time. Now, of course, we'll come back to this throughout the show as more develops. But for now, we're going to move on. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. This is Britain's News Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Now, ministers are reportedly considering requiring benefit claimants to provide access to their bank accounts in a bid to combat welfare system fraud.
Yes, this initiative would adopt an open banking approach similar to practices used by lenders and landlords to assess applicants' financial situations accurately.
Well, the government is increasingly concerned about the rise in benefit fraud, with nearly £10 billion lost to fraud and error last year and £35 billion paid since the pandemic.
So is this a sensible measure to recoup that cash or an infringement on private information and liberties? Well, to debate that out, we're now joined by former Conservative MP Neil Parish and former Labour spokesperson James Mathewson. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, gents. Let's get straight into it. James, what do you make of this? Is it an invasion of privacy or is this a necessary evil?
It's not so much the invasion of privacy aspect that concerns me, although there will be questions about that, and rightly so, as there should be with any scrutiny around any changes to welfare policy. However, when it comes to the focus of the Labour government and the things that it wants to address as a priority and take up the airwaves with, as we end up discussing this morning, and obviously other people will talk about and write about in due course, it just seems to be another example of the Labour leadership trying to scramble to find some kind of red meat to keep right-wing voters in line and try and keep them on side with the Labour coalition that obviously elected them at the last election. I think it's a bit of a shame because this is not a priority. And no matter which Labour MP tells you that it is, this is not a priority for any Labour Party person. It's just not what the Labour Party is elected to do in power. There are other areas to look. And if we're seriously concerned about welfare benefits and any kind of fraud or fraudulent activity, are we concerned because of money and loss of finances, which in the grand scheme of the government's finances is minimal, or are we concerned on a principle aspect? And that's the question that has to be answered here, because if we're concerned purely about the money, then we want to be looking at other places like water companies, energy companies and places like that that are registering huge profits whilst charging consumers a lot of money. So there's other places to go for this, and I just don't see it as a priority for the Labour government right now.
Neil, what's your take on this?
Well, I think that, we have a benefit system there to help people who really, can't get to work, perhaps their health is bad. So therefore, and this is paid for by the taxpayers and those people that go to work. And so therefore, you have got to be very, very careful that you're not actually paying out money to people that don't actually need it. We've also had, a lot more people on benefits since COVID. Now, some of those may well be affected by long COVID, but others may not be. And so I think, this government has raised a lot of tax in the last year, a lot on employment, and that will be handed down to workers. So I think, those that work do actually expect the government then to spend that money wisely. And you see, if you were applying for a mortgage, we applied for a mortgage a couple of years ago on a house. Now, they actually went into quite a lot of detail on exactly what our income was, what we spent that income on, because naturally, if they're going to lend money, then they need to be sure it's secure. Now, if the government is actually going to provide benefits, and I'm certainly not against benefits, I think it is necessary in our society to do that, but it's also necessary to make sure it goes to those that really need it and those that perhaps are, potentially committing fraud, that needs to be stamped out. And so I think this measure is actually sensible, but of course, it like all measures, it will need to be enforced and it'll be need to look into, and we've got to be careful that we don't pry too far into people's private lives.
We're running slightly short of time, so I'm just going to interject and get a quick word from James and a quick response from you, and I'm afraid that's all we have time for. But James, just want to jump in on what Neil is saying there and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Neil's saying in principle is right. You know, we have this welfare system. It needs to work and it needs to be efficient, and I understand that. However, that would be the case if it wasn't already so difficult to navigate, because at the moment it's already very challenging. It already blocks access to many people because of the process and because of how difficult it is to apply for things, including PIP, including unemployment support through universal credit. So all those things are already difficult enough. To put another step in place just feels like this Labour government attempting to follow right-wing parties again and try and say that they're hard on welfare, which
Neil,
isn't a good look. And it's
James, sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt again. I do apologise, but Neil, just one sentence back to James on that. We're going to have to leave it there for this time, I'm afraid. But Neil, what do you think? Just one sentence.
I just think that this is, you know, it was partly put forward by the previous government. I think it's right for this government to pursue it, because we've got to make sure that benefits go to those that really need it and try and cut out as much as fraud as possible.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, both of you. I'm very sorry that we had to cut it short. We're just going to read this very quick statement from the Department of Work and Pensions, who say that the government is bringing forward the biggest fraud crackdown in a generation, saving the taxpayer £1.5 billion over the next 5 years as part of a wider plan that will save £8.6 billion by 2030. Our fraud, error and recovery bill includes an eligibility verification measure, which will require banks to share limited data on claimants who may be wrongly receiving benefits, such as those on universal credit with savings over £16,000. This will not give DWP access to benefit claimants' bank accounts. There we go.
That
got
was
there.
very, very well done. Thank you to Neil and James for joining us there. Still to come, an incredible pair of sporty siblings will be joining us in the studio to put Adam and I to shame. One of them climbed Everest and the other rode across the Atlantic. Stay with us for that. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Eastern parts of the Mediterranean experiencing below average temperatures and also some heavy showers at times. These are set to affect Athens and also Santorini, but as we move our way westwards across the Mediterranean, largely mild, largely settled. There are a few showers affecting Nice and parts of the Balearic Islands, but elsewhere across Spain, Portugal, Madeira and also Tenerife, largely settled, and it remains that way as we head into the new week. Sunny spells and the best of the temperatures, and a gradual improvement in temperatures across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. This weekend starts off with sunshine and showers, but turning very wet and windy from Sunday with some Met Office warnings in force. To start the day, quite a wet start across East Anglia, parts of Sussex and Kent, but eventually rain will ease away, leading to a brighter afternoon. Plenty of showers moving into the far northwest. These could be quite blustery at times, but elsewhere lighter winds and generally plenty of dry weather and some sunshine. They can't rule out the odd shower or two, particularly across central and southern parts of England and Wales, and still feeling very mild for the time of year, highs of around 12 to 13 Celsius. Then to end the day, there's still going to be plenty of blustery showers moving their way through, particularly across northwestern parts of Scotland. Showers could be heavy at times, may even see some hail, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder. Largely dry towards eastern parts of Scotland, but still those strong winds around western coasts. Similar across Northern Ireland, probably largely dry. They can't rule out a few showers just skirting western coasts, but northern and central parts of England, parts of Wales and the southwest, largely dry, and particularly across parts of the east where we had a fairly wet start. And then overnight it remains largely similar, though a change is on its way. Strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain gradually moving their way in towards the west, pushing into Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland through the early hours of the morning, starting to turn very windy. Could even see gust speeds of up to 70 miles per hour across the far northwest by the time we reach the morning, but elsewhere it should be a largely dry start. We'll see a gradual deterioration through the day with strong winds, outbreaks of rain gradually pushing their way eastwards across the country. Many Met Office warnings in force, particularly for heavy rain across southern parts of Wales, where there's a chance we could see some flooding issues. But for all, it is going to be an unsettled day with strong winds and heavy outbreaks of rain and fairly similar temperatures to Saturday, but obviously a very different feel to the weather. That's it from me. Bye-bye for now.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, It happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. An incredible story now of two very, very talented siblings.
Yes, Paul Anderson last year achieved the incredible feat of reaching the summit of Mount Everest alongside his son Aaron. Together they raised an incredible £85,000 for Dementia UK.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then Paul's sister Fiona has got in on the action, winning a rowing race 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean alongside her teammates in the Ocean Empower crew. They're joining us in the studio now. Paul, Fiona, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, great to see you. Thank
very,
you.
very impressive. I mean, is your family just all superheroes, or...?
Where did you get it from?
Well, yeah, not sure really. We do have another sister, so she gets a lot of what are you doing then? You know.
Oh,
so, yeah, no, Mum and Dad weren't really either into sort of big challenges or anything. So.
Well, should we speak about Everest first? Because is that that happened first, I believe?
Yeah, May last year.
So talk to me about that. What made you want to do that, and how was it? I can't even fathom it.
Yeah, so a lifelong dream, really, I guess. Always been about mountains for me, and opportunity to do it with my son. He was a great avid climber, loves the outdoors as well.
I think we're seeing some pictures now from, is that, I assume, from up Everest?
Yeah, that's on the top.
So you see that?
That's the summit.
The peak of Everest. That's the summit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. How long? First of all, how long does it take to prepare, and then how long does the climb itself take?
So yeah, a couple of years in preparation. You have to climb some big peaks before that to sort of so you know you're used to sort of you can handle the altitude, I guess.
Yeah.
So a couple of years in preparation, and then a 6-week trip once you're out there.
Right.
Again, the acclimatization is the big thing. It's not a technical climb as such. It's just getting used to the lack of oxygen.
Right. And it's a bit chilly as well, isn't it? I'd imagine.
Yeah, quite chilly. Yeah. But once you acclimatise, the actual climb itself from the bottom of the mountain was probably 3 days up and 1 day down type thing.
Yeah, unbelievable. And Fiona, let's talk about 3,000 miles rowing across the Atlantic. I didn't even think that was humanly possible. So how long does that take? And talk about the preparation for that one. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we were probably preparing for about 2 years before the event, training, there's a lot of technical and boat handling skills, navigation. So it's not just about the physical rowing. There's a lot of seamanship involved, but the actual crossing itself, it took us 44 days.
Yeah.
How many of you on the crew?
So on our boat there were 4 of us, four
when I see
women.
pictures of that, there you are.
And this was...
Go on, the girls.
Yeah, we did actually, as it said there, we were the winners of this event, which is the world's toughest row, which is what we took part in, so the 36 boats in total.
And what made you want to do this row?
I mean, I think I've always just... It's really been the idea of a challenge, and the row is just something I heard about. I couldn't get the idea out of my head. Just felt like the right thing to do. And then I met this amazing crew, and we came together, and we were like, yeah, let's just do something really tough. I think that was ultimately it. Let's do something really tough.
The incredible thing for both of you is there's no backup crew. If you get halfway up or you're in the middle of the Atlantic, you can't say, you know what, I can't make it anymore.
Yeah.
I suppose that is part of the mental resilience, and that's what keeps you going. You have to, right? Is that what you're thinking when you're tired and you're really stressed?
I mean, for me, that was one of the exciting things. Actually, was like there is no backing out. Once you're there, you've got to keep going, and it really tests your mental resilience, as you said. It's not just a physical thing; it really is about that mental.
Yeah, and Paul,
I guess there's a lot of adrenaline as well, isn't there, that must keep you being on the middle of the ocean or being halfway up Everest?
Yeah, I guess on the mountain, it's about can you not get sick from the altitude. So altitude sickness is a real issue, a real threat. Helicopters can't fly above 6,500 meters. The top is 8,800 meters. So yeah, to some extent you're reliant on the Sherpas that you're with. But yeah, help isn't going to come. Isn't coming quickly now.
How much sleep do you get per night, both of you?
I was getting more than she was getting.
So we had a shift pattern of 2 of us rowing and 2 of us sleeping. We did 3 hours on, 3 hours off, continuously for 24 hours for 44 days. And, as Paul said, there's no support, there's no backup. If you've got a problem out there, you're radioing the nearest tanker to see if they can come and get you. But you really are on your own.
Amazing. And I believe you did yours. You raised quite a large sum of money for quite an important cause.
Yeah, so we're up to about 110,000 now, which is great for Dementia UK.
Yes.
We lost our mum last year to dementia. It's something that affects every family in the UK now, biggest killer in the UK. That was great to sort of raise so much money on the back of the challenge as well.
You've both very, very impressive. Thank you both so much for joining us. It's so amazing.
Thank you very much.
So it's inspirational, really.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. I would chat to you guys forever, but I'm afraid we've got to go to the break. Lots more still to come. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway. As we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a very good morning to you. I'm Adam Cherry alongside the wonderful Sophie Reaper, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and lots still to come, so let's take a look. 4 more Israeli hostages are set to be released by Hamas imminently. Here's the scene in Gaza and Tel Aviv. We'll keep you up to date.
And Sir Keir Starmer has defied... sorry, excuse me.
Big Brother is watching. Live surveillance cameras deployed across Cardiff today for the Six Nations game, as some call it a shocking expansion of police surveillance.
Row in Selby. Local residents discover houses are being given to Afghan refugees at the expense of council tenants. Alan Riley has the story.
This week, billionaire brothers Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss finalised a deal which saw them become co-owners of Real Bedford FC, a club in the 8th tier of English football. We'll be speaking to club chairman Peter McCormack to learn more about this fairy tale story.
And are we entering a new era of James Bond? Amazon are due to take creative control of the franchise as the producers step back, those long-time producers. More on that with showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci.
And we'll have all of the day's top stories with news editor at Guido Fox, Max Young. They're looking this time, and political commentator Eve McQuillan. Thank you, guys.
Staring down the... That was very James Bond of him, wasn't it? Very good.
Ready to roll.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live, only on GBNews. I have to say, after speaking to Paul and Fiona, I'm feeling very inadequate. I need to be more active. I need to do something impressive.
I don't know if I could quite climb Everest or row across the Atlantic, so maybe something more manageable for us.
Yeah, you work up to that, don't you? I don't think I'll be doing that this time next week, but we'll see.
Anyway. Amazing how much money Paul raised and his son raised for Dementia UK. Over £100,000 now. Yeah. What a worthy cause.
Yeah, and that was for Dementia UK, which is a really important cause to lots of people, of course it is. Don't forget, we want to hear from you, of course. We would love to hear what you think. Send your views, send your peaks of the week, your highlights of the week. Get in touch, as usual, by visiting gbnews.com/you'll say.
But before we do anything else, the wonderful Sophia Hill has all of your news headlines.
Sophie, Adam, thank you. A very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Here are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. Breaking news: in the last half hour, Hamas have released 3 more hostages in Gaza, with the Red Cross standing by. Those returned are the last living hostages from a group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal that took effect on the 19th of January. Israeli hostages Tal Shoham and Avera Mengistu were handed over to the Red Cross earlier this morning. The 4th hostage that was due to be released, Hisham al-Said, will now be freed without a public ceremony later. This comes as Israel's army have reported that the body of Hamas hostage Shiri Bibas has been identified. They say it's likely she was killed while in captivity with her 2 sons. The Foreign Secretary has called Hamas's failure to return the right body of the Israeli hostage sick and abhorrent. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to confirm a timeline to raise defence spending as he prepares to travel to Washington to meet Donald Trump next week. There are reports suggesting he will invite his counterpart to the UK for a state visit. The Prime Minister will have to walk a tricky line stateside, balancing the UK's support for Ukraine with the need to keep the US on side. This all comes as President Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir Starmer of doing nothing to end the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Trump also said Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together, and he thinks a peace deal can be done. Now, some breaking news just in. A British skier has been found dead at the bottom of the French Alps. The body of a 23-year-old man who has not yet been formally identified was found on Monday at the bottom of a cliff near the town of Morzine. An investigation led by local police forces is ongoing to determine the circumstances of death. Now, Jenny Hall was last seen in County Durham just after 3 p.m. on Tuesday, and that's why a major police search is underway for a runner who has been missing for the last 3 days. Police officers say they are becoming increasingly concerned, and anyone who believes they have any relevant information is being asked to contact the police. South Wales Police have revealed plans to use live facial recognition cameras in Cardiff during this year's Six Nations Rugby Internationals. The cameras will be placed at key points across the city centre and will alert officers to anyone who is on a predetermined watch list, with the aim of keeping visitors safe. But critics have raised serious concerns, claiming it will turn Cardiff into an Orwellian zone of biometric surveillance. And it's a Saturday showdown in the Six Nations today as England take on Scotland in the Calcutta Cup and Wales are to play Ireland in Cardiff. Scotland's fly-half Finn Russell has been past fit to start today's game against England after recovering from a nasty head knock in Scotland's round 2 loss to Ireland. Meanwhile, Irish hooker Dan Sheehan says Ireland will knuckle down to basics as they continue their Guinness Six Nations title quest. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour, but now it's back to Adam and Sophie.
Well, welcome back. Ahead of the Six Nations match in Cardiff today, as you just heard, authorities have introduced citywide facial recognition, which is the first use of that technology in the UK.
Absolutely. South Wales Police are introducing semi-permanent facial recognition cameras in the city to keep visitors safe, they say.
Well, it comes as yesterday tech giant Apple removed an advanced security tool following a row with the UK government, which means customers in the UK will no longer be offered end-to-end encryption for cloud data storage. Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Jack Carson. Jack, take it away.
Well, right on cue, this live facial recognition van has just moved right behind me. This is part of a trial which South Wales Police are rolling out across Six Nations events that are being held here in Cardiff. Of course, it's Wales, Ireland today. And these are facial recognition cameras. So the cameras essentially scan. They work by scanning the faces of people that walk in their vicinity and then compare them using AI and technology to a watch list in order to try and find people who possibly are banned from an area such as this, banned from rugby matches, those who maybe possibly pose a risk to the public, or those who are simply criminals wanted on suspicion of committing a crime. These are essentially zones of safety which have been set up here today. That's part of a concept which is funded by the Home Office and trialled by the South Wales Police as well during this Rugby International period as well. But there are, of course, concerns around this at the same time. Big Brother Watch, that organisation, saying this is a shocking expansion of what this is police surveillance, turns Cardiff into an Orwellian zone of biometric surveillance. That's what Madeline Stone, who's the senior advocacy officer at Big Brother Watch, says. But we have been speaking to the Welsh fans that have been here today, soaking up a bit of the atmosphere, finding out actually, are they concerned about these facial recognition cameras here in operation today? Here's what they told us.
I don't really have an issue with it or anything. I think as long as it's there and it's for the safety of everybody, if anything was to sort of happen, that they'll be able to maybe zoom in to the culprits and things like that.
We are one of the most watched countries in the world, so it was going to happen eventually. There's not a lot we can do about it unless we're walking around with masks on, and that's not going to go down very well, is it?
I'm okay because I try and keep to the laws, and so yeah, not bothered by that.
I haven't got a problem with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way things are going, safety for people as well, you know. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, as you hear from people there, and I think the general consensus of people that I've spoken to today is that with the just levels of CCTV nowadays, the levels of information which goes through our phones, you're mentioning the story there with Apple and the situation with encryption now with Apple devices, people are used to having their location be known to their devices, being watched by CCTV cameras, even ring doorbells when possibly they walk by a house. So maybe that levels of surveillance that these are being introduced here for these kind of sporting events, people seemingly feeling used to it. In total, these cameras were used 73 times by the Metropolitan Police last year, scanning the faces of more than 145,000 people, leading to 209 arrests. That, therefore, the Home Office and police argue, therefore, these large-scale surveillance operations for major sporting events like we're seeing here in Cardiff today means that this kind of live facial recognition is justified, but those concerns do remain about just how this data is used, of course, when people walk by these cameras and are picked up by them.
Jack, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the cameraman he's just disappeared in the last couple of seconds. But I'd love to that one with the dragon face. What do you call that? Was just fantastic. She was brilliant, wasn't
Jack,
she?
I hope you have time to have a pint and enjoy a bit of the rugby later on today. Thank you very much. Now, to take a look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined once again by political commentator Eve McQuillan and news editor at Guido Fawkes, Max Young. Thank you for joining us once again, Gavin.
Hello, but where should we go first, guys? Do we want to do this.
We're straight in this hour, no messing around.
No messing around. Let's get into it. Max, let's start with this one because you've been across this one all week long. Business Secretary Johnny Reynolds, his CV controversy. Tell us about that because you, like I said, this is your reporting, right?
Yeah, well, Bonnie Johnny was a trainee.
To give him his official title.
Current Business and Trade Secretary, left law school and spent less than 12 months at Manchester-based law firm Addleshaw Goddard training. The MP in Stalybridge then decided to stand down. So he joined the race, never got to finish his training and became an MP. And that's the end of the story. Apart from the fact that he's referred to himself as a fully qualified solicitor several times in the period after the fact, right? Which, unfortunately, is a big no-no in the legal world because the Solicitors Act of 1974 prohibits that. He said it himself in the Commons. He's put it even on 2015 election material in a pamphlet, which is potentially a violation of the Representation of the People Act. But, I mean, there's a one-year time limit on most of that stuff. So I don't think there's anything prosecutable here. Yeah. But it's a bad look, you know, to coin a phrase. And I think it highlights that much of the cabinet is less experienced than they would like to let on.
Yeah, he's not the first one, is he? We also had a similar controversy with the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and now you're reporting as well, Angela Rayner has got some issues of her own, right?
Yeah, Ange has said many times...
Deputy Prime Minister.
That's the Deputy Prime Minister there, Angela Rayner, said many times that she was a home help for varying periods. The latest line is that she was a home help for 15 years. Now, according to testimony from sources who spoke to Lord Ashcroft's book, the unauthorised biography called Red Queen, this isn't true. She was a home help for about 3 years and then became a full-time Unison official. The way this works is that you're seconded from your previous job at the council to do full-time union work. So her substantive job, this is a term invented by the trade unions, was technically home help, right? That's just the nominal term. She wasn't doing any home help stuff, and they're claiming that she was. So it just doesn't add up. Yeah. Meanwhile, she said she worked almost a decade, 14 years, 15 years and 17 years on different occasions as a home help. So I think she could answer some basic questions about what she actually did before she got into politics.
I want to bring you in a second, Eve, but first I want to just read out this right of reply from Jonathan Reynolds. In response to that allegations that Jonathan Reynolds fabricated his CV, Labour sources have stressed that LinkedIn is not a CV, it is a social media profile. There are also several examples of him stating that he was only a trainee solicitor and any mistakes on his LinkedIn profile has been attributed to an admin error. Now, Eve, we've seen this with Jonathan Reynolds, we've heard that, then we're hearing it with the Chancellor, we're hearing it with the Deputy Prime Minister. It just seems to keep coming for Labour at the moment, doesn't it?
It does seem to keep coming for Labour, and what I will say is, you know, whilst I welcome Max's reporting, there's a little bit of clutching at straws here. Johnny Reynolds, he wasn't fired. What happened? He ran for Parliament, he won an election. There is no semblance of any idea that Johnny Reynolds was giving people legal advice that he wasn't qualified to do, which is why it's a crime to misrepresent yourself as a solicitor. He got a promotion, effectively. He got a great job. And he's been talking about, he said he worked as a solicitor, which is what a trainee solicitor does.
It seems a little bit of an obfuscation there, though. If you're telling would-be constituents, you're presenting yourself to the electorate and saying, I am a solicitor, I think that lends more credibility than if you say you're a trainee, right? You wouldn't disagree?
Say you worked as a solicitor, you know, that is what a trainee solicitor is doing. I think, really, I want to judge him on his record and what he achieves rather than, you know, what he says on his LinkedIn profile.
A lot of semantics involved, so shall we move on to the next story?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on.
So what are we looking at here in the Daily Mail today? Farmyard chickens could help revive the dodo.
Lovely.
So a slight gear change here. We're moving on from politics there. We're on to extinct birds.
Yep.
They're far more likely to be found on our dinner plates than earning a place in the realm of scientific endeavour. What do we make of this?
Well, I think dodos are cool and that would be fun. But I think what is more interesting about this is the options that this might give us in terms of things like protecting wildlife and protecting farm animals from diseases. We've got huge problems with the overuse of antibiotics to support the food industry. And actually, if we could use science to mitigate against this, that could be really quite exciting. Dodos, I don't know about that.
But maybe it will lead to us reviving more exciting animals. like a mammoth or
Dinosaurs.
something. Yeah, dinosaur.
Yeah.
This is
Saber-toothed tiger, why not?
This is the path to Jurassic Park.
Why not?
This is the path to Jurassic Park. I'm all for it. My favourite dinosaur is the Diplodocus, and I'd like to see them roaming around.
Which one is it?
That huge one with the long neck that's always
I thought
grazing.
it was Diplodocus.
Well, you see,
that may be true. I may have got that wrong.
Oh, okay.
They're not around, so we can't ask them, but hopefully that may change.
What do you make of this story? Do you think this is a good thing, potentially reviving the dodo? Is this what we should be focusing on?
I think we should be genetically modifying as quickly and as fast as possible in all spheres. Yeah. Let's move on from crops. Let's start doing chickens. I mean, this particular case is to create. It's a test case, right? So they're actually making just a wilder chicken than a domesticated one.
A wilder chicken, like a crazy chicken. Would you all then eat in a double wrap and twice in a row?
Yeah. So I think the Nando's menu is about to get a lot more exciting, and that's what I really want to focus on here. But the form of it is quite interesting because they actually shave off the top of the egg and then they sort of scotch tape over it and inject new genetic material.
This is very sophisticated.
I'm sure they would perhaps describe it in a slightly more complex way. But I think we've obviously in recent years we've seen such issues with bird flu. You know, speaking to farmers that have to, you know, just get rid of all their birds when they have that kind of issue. I know one of friends of the family has had that issue on their farm, and it is rife. So I think if this can do something about that.
Yeah, because that seems to be happening more often now, doesn't it?
It does.
You read about it all the time.
Yeah, because the gene pool is much smaller of farmed birds. Chickens are already genetically modified through time, and if the gene pool is really small, that makes them more vulnerable to disease.
Shall we move on to do one more story whilst we're here, guys? So this one is in the Mail, isn't it? Where's my sheet? Here we go. Here we go. Front page of the Mail. That's right. That's right. I've come prepared. I've got my own little sheet which says about Elton John and Simon Cowell backing a campaign to fight against AI. They're saying that it's plundering Britain's creative genius, and they're calling on ministers to rethink their radical proposals to relax copyright rules on this stuff. So I want to make a big picture conversation about this. What do you guys think of the way generative AI is going? Are you worried about spoofs, deep fakes, all that sort of stuff? Do we need to legislate against that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really worried about the capacity for deep fakes to, you know, sexual videos and abuse and all that kind of horrible, horrible stuff that's getting more and more common. But also, I really like what Elton John and Sam Cowell have done because they're standing up for artists coming through. They will be fine. You know, they've made their millions, they've made their name. But what we'll see if we just have AI producing art is people won't learn their craft. They won't come through. And that's a real shame. Want AI to do the boring stuff, not the fun stuff, you know?
Yeah, Max, what do you reckon? You don't think legislating against this stuff, the danger is maybe you're stifling innovation and AI, you know, in years to come, 5, 10 years, massive benefits in health, in science. Is this a slippery slope as well?
I think so. As far as I'm aware, the new legislation that John and Cowell are opposing to actually just introduces an opt-out system for the artists, so they can just say, I don't want this used in a language model or any of the other generative models, which to me doesn't seem that
right. So in their voice, their likeness isn't used in generative AI.
But who has the ability to push for this? So I've been talking to a friend who's a theatrical agent, and he's really worried and trying to get into his actors' contracts that they can't be used and replicated through AI. But of course, if you're a more junior actor, you're just starting out, do you really have the power to push for that? So
Or the money.
opt-out, the power, the money, exactly. Opt-out will only benefit those who are well advanced in their careers, not the new people coming through.
I have not heard a good AI song yet.
No.
But give it a couple of years, though. Look at where we've been in the last. When did GPT and all these other models come along? Really, like 2.5 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
And already the advances, particularly in image generation, is unbelievable. Videos now, you can spoof stuff that's almost lifelike. Like you can't distinguish. So where are we in 5 years?
There should be more concern, though. You mentioned about like the sexual pornography use of it.
Yeah.
That to me should be where the concerns, not just. I mean, you know, Elton John and Simon Cowell, clearly they have a point about young artists and material being stolen, but that to me is the real concern, is deep fakes when it comes to things like that, because that is frightening to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. That should be heavily regulated, and these technical companies should be cracked down on to make sure that, you know, it doesn't happen. A huge form of abuse. Horrible.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you very much for joining us on the sofa. Really appreciate it. Right, good news for you, because it's time for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of the 2 new winners each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers, 10 grand in tax-free cash, why not? Here's all the details you need. Take a look.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Well, that sounds absolutely wonderful, doesn't it? Now, thank you to Eve and Max for joining us. Up next, Anna Riley has a special report that's coming up next, and we'll have some more of your peaks of the week. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
First, mate, we had lockdowns. Then we had soaring energy costs. Then we had a hike in national insurance for employers. Then we had soaring wage costs. And now the government expects people like you to monitor what people say in boozers. And if you don't, you might get sued. I bet you feel like saying cheers to them, don't you?
Look, it just looks like another war on pubs. You know, remember they tried to stop smoking outside as well. Luckily, they rethought that. But look, we've got everything stacked against us, Martin, and the last thing I need to do is go and get in people's conversations. At the end of the day, a pub is like an extension to your home. You know, it's a public house. Friends go to speak, friends go to meet, unwind after work. It's none of my business what you're talking about. Any good publican, and myself included, anyone that was rude to anyone or on purpose, they want to offend people or they want to dig people out, antagonise them, of course I'm going to step in and say, behave yourself or you go. But look, how can I be on social media talking about everything, transgender, immigration, and people not be allowed to do that at the bar or do that at the table of a pub? It's ridiculous. And these ministers really do need to sort of look at this legislation and see where it could lead, because I'm not going to stop anyone speaking in my pub. Again, if they're trying to antagonise people or they're rude or trying to start trouble, they get thrown out the front door, and any publican worth their salt is going to do that as well. But we're not there to police people's conversations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back now. Don't forget to keep sending us your responses to the questions about the topics we're talking about this week and our peaks of the week. Should we go through these? We've got quite a few, haven't we?
Let's take a look.
Let's go. Right, so I'm going to start with Grumpy Grandad. Grumpy Grandad, fan of the show. He's in and talks to us every week, doesn't he? He says, you can't walk down the street without being caught on camera somewhere, be it security cameras, ring doorbells, they're everywhere. It's too late to start worrying about cameras now. He's obviously reflecting on what we saw from Jack Carson in Cardiff there, using CCTV facial recognition on the Six Nations, Apple's backdoor privacy issues. So there's a lot of this going on. I think
how to open up your bank accounts to the government.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Should we take a look at some peaks of the week as well? We've got Josh says my peak of the week was moving in with my girlfriend. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Josh. Jackie says my peak of the week was seeing Sydney Christmas last night at the Cambridge Corn Exchange. We had front row seats and she was amazing. Love that, Jackie. We've also got another one here on my laptop. Jackie Phoenix says my peak of the week is today. It's my 50th birthday. Happy birthday, Jackie, she says.
Happy.
I turn half a century old and it's gone by faster than a race on the Autobahn.
Happy birthday, Jackie.
Happy birthday from all of us here at GB News, Jackie. We love that one. And keep sending them in. We love to hear your peaks of the week. And we'll keep them coming.
We've got a few more we're going to go to in just a moment. But first, I want to chat about this story because a New York, let's try that again.
Similar.
Almost there. A North Yorkshire councillor has spoken out after nearly £1 million of spending has been approved to house 3 Afghan families.
This comes as more than 30,000 Afghans have come to the UK under resettlement schemes. Anna Riley has this story.
Terror and desperation as Afghans try to flee Kabul after the Taliban regained control. Worldwide, resettlement and aid was given to Afghans considered most vulnerable. Over 30,000 Afghan refugees have relocated to the UK. But questions are being asked in North Yorkshire as to the fairness of the housing scheme.
There is what's called the larger resettlement, and this is a requirement where councils have to acquire houses with around 4-bedroomed houses to house larger Afghan families. And so in this scheme what we've had is the council has gone and sourced from a developer 3 brand new 4-bedroom houses at a cost of £1 million, of which it receives about 444,000 from the government, and the rest is to be funded through borrowing against what's referred to as the housing revenue account. That's there to protect council tenants from councils using their rent on other matters.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief sympathises with the duty to house Afghan refugees, but she says this shouldn't be at the expense of council house tenants.
While the government is getting rid of its hotel costs for housing individuals, what it's not telling the public is that then is being passed on in debt to some of the poorest people in our society. If we can intervene in the market to support the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme, why aren't we intervening in the market to support those who the government says that there isn't enough affordable housing for? I have no problem with helping people from Afghanistan, but I don't know why aren't we helping people that are struggling to get on the housing ladder. If we can do it for one scheme, we should be doing it for everyone. Treat everyone equally is my view.
The 3 houses for Afghan families in Selby will cost nearly £977,000. North Yorkshire Council said the local authority housing fund is made available by central government, and the homes can only be offered to families from the Afghan resettlement scheme. Therefore, we are not able to use it to invest in existing housing stock. The scheme is vital in supporting those who risked their lives to help British Armed Forces in Afghanistan and were forced to flee. We have also allocated almost £297 million for more homes and improvements to existing ones to improve standards for our tenants. With thousands in North Yorkshire on the council house waiting list, pressure is mounting. Anna Riley, GB News.
Well, that was our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley, there with that report. Now, we're going to return to your peaks of the week. It's our favourite part of the show. So we read out Jackie's peak of the week earlier, that she went to see Sydney Christmas last night at the Cambridge Corn Exchange, and we've now got a picture from Jackie. How fabulous is that? That really is front row.
That is. I mean,
you're practically on the stage there, Jackie.
Might as well do a duet or something there. Fantastic. Look at that.
That is brilliant. Well, I'm sure you had a fabulous time.
OK, next. Best peak of the week. This is from Chris. He says this is Fuzzy and Spot. There they are, Fuzzy and Spot, 2 dogs.
We do love a dog on Saturday Morning Live.
We do, yeah, well, almost every week. Not quite, but we do seem to have furry friends on basically every week. I'm all for it. And apparently they can't wait for the nice weather. Fuzzy, Spot, I'm with you.
If your peak of the week 100%. Is a pet picture, I can all but guarantee that we will be showing that because we do love a pet
I'm
picture.
all over it.
We've had another couple into the inbox in the last few minutes.
Yeah.
Adrian saying, visiting my brother's grave, seeing my 2 nieces, making sure they're they're okay. Adrian, that's a really nice one. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And then Lindsay says, mine would have to be going to watch Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So lots of people going to see some shows.
Lots of shows. There we go. Our audience very into their performances.
Do you go to the theatre very much? I feel like every time I go, I really enjoy it, and then I think I should do that more often, and then never really do. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's easy when you live in London because there's so much available, but up in the north it's a little bit less frequent. I will say, actually, me and my mum in the last 12 months have been about 4 or 5 times to see various things.
What have you seen?
You put me on the spot now. We
went
to see Murder on the Orient Express. We went to see Mousetrap.
Yeah.
I went to see Chicago. I can't think of the others. But we have been to see... Oh, we went to see A Christmas Carol at the Lowry Theatre, which was really great. Scrooge was played by a woman.
Oh, interesting.
Which was an interesting take, actually.
I've never seen Christmas Carol, actually.
Oh, dear.
But anyway, sorry, we're getting derailed. Lots more to come on the show today, but
keep sending you peaks of the week.
Please do, yeah, it's really important. Let's get the news headlines first, of course, with Sophia Hill.
Very good morning. It's just gone 11:30. I'm Sophia Hill with your latest headlines in the GB newsroom. Now, in the last hour, Hamas have released 3 more hostages in Gaza, with the Red Cross standing by. Those returned are the last living hostages from a group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal that took effect on the 19th of January. Israeli hostages Tal Shoam and Avera Mengistu were handed over to the Red Cross earlier this morning. The 4th hostage that was due to be released, Hisham al-Said, will now be freed without a public ceremony later. This comes as Israel's army have reported that the body of Hamas hostage Shiras Bibas has been identified. They say it's likely she was killed while in captivity with her 2 young sons. The Foreign Secretary has called Hamas's failure to return the right body of the Israeli hostage sick and abhorrent. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to confirm a timeline to raise defence spending as he prepares to travel to Washington to meet Donald Trump next week. There are reports suggesting he will even invite his counterpart to the UK for a state visit. The Prime Minister will have to walk a tricky line stateside, balancing the UK's support for Ukraine with the need to keep the US on side. This comes as President Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer of doing nothing to end the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, he also said Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together, and he thinks a peace deal can be done. South Wales Police have revealed plans to use live facial recognition cameras in Cardiff during this year's Six Nations Rugby Internationals. The cameras will be placed at key points across the city centre and will alert officers to anyone who is on a predetermined watch list, with the aim of keeping visitors safe. But critics have raised serious concerns, claiming it will turn Cardiff into an Orwellian zone of biometric surveillance. And it's a Saturday showdown in the Six Nations today as England take on Scotland in the Calcutta Cup and Wales will play Ireland in Cardiff. Scotland's fly-half Finn Russell has been past fit to start today's game against England after recovering from a nasty head knock in Scotland's round 2 loss to Ireland. Meanwhile, Ireland's hooker Dan Sheehan says Ireland will knuckle down to basics as they continue their Guinness Six Nations title quest. That's the news on GB News. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
People living with obesity are people, and they deserve the right for treatment and care as much as anyone else. What we need to understand is that obesity is a chronic condition or a disease, as some people call it. It's not a choice. And this is the bit that people really struggle with, is that people think this is a lifestyle choice and people have done this to themselves. What we now know is the science and the evidence shows us that this isn't a choice. People have genetic predispositions for living with obesity. What we need to do is be a bit more compassionate and caring to people that live with obesity and support them to make healthier choices, not actually just discriminate and tell them that they're doing something wrong when, if I had asthma, for instance, you wouldn't be saying the same thing to me there. But then it's exactly the same.
Usually, if you're going for an operation of some form or other, there'll be often there is a criteria. So my mother, she had a knee operation. They wanted to make sure her blood pressure was right and all these things. This is, to hear somebody say that obesity isn't a choice just because you've got genetic predisposition to it, it's just exactly why people seem to be legitimising being overweight. Ozempic has proved that people are overweight because they eat too much. Because Ozempic tells you to stop eating, it makes you think that you've eaten and makes you feel full, so you don't eat. You may be predisposed to anything, but you also have a large percentage of responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So absolutely, it is in the patient's best interests, because if you're overweight, it'll take you longer to heal. You're more likely to have complications, the same if you smoke, and also the outcomes are usually better. So for a smoker, if you quit, say 4 weeks before surgery, you're 25%, your risk is lower of respiratory complications. So this is literally, of course it's discriminatory, because you have to decide, you have to prioritise the people that are likely to survive the operations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, don't forget to keep sending us in your questions about the topics from the news this week, which we can chat through. And don't forget to keep sending us your peaks of the week. You can write them in on the GB News website, or you can send them in to gbviews@gbnews.com. I never get that quite right.
Yeah, no,
it's a bit of a mouthful.
It is. But apparently the good news is everybody at home is getting it right, because we're getting lots coming in. I just want to read this one out from Lindsay saying, my peak of the week is in my studies in law. I signed up to help women's violence services to help those women know their rights and help them build their legal cases. Really important. Thank you for that one, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay. We've also had one in from Eleanor. She's been accepted as a PhD student for criminology at Manchester University. Amazing. PhD. This is very impressive. Doctor to be.
What's that, like 7 years, isn't it? That's a real commitment.
It is a commitment, that.
Yeah.
I got a master's degree and that was quite enough.
And that's 4 years, isn't it?
No, it was one year
on top of your three. Yeah.
And that was quite enough.
Yeah,
but thank you for sending those in. Congratulations to you, Eleanor.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, shall we move on? Because there's still quite a lot to get through, isn't there? Because this week, American billionaire brothers Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss finalised a £3.58 million investment in Real Bedford FC, which is an 8th-tier football club.
They did indeed. The investment grants them a 45% stake in the club, making them co-owners. And the Winklevoss brothers have a net worth of an astonishing, ready for this?
Yeah.
$2.14 billion. That's a B there, billion.
I'd be happy with one.
Wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind 2.14 million, to be fair. Dear me, it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Now, their move follows an increasing trend of big investors getting into English football, including Ryan Reynolds and Rob... How do you pronounce his surname?
McElhenney.
We'll
get Wrexham.
Yeah, Wrexham FC. Right, now, joining us now is the chairman of Real Bedford Football Club, Peter McCormack. Peter, thank you very much for joining us. What does this investment mean for the club? What are you looking forward to?
Well, thanks for having me, firstly. I think it validates what we've been doing as a football club
When I acquired the club a couple of years ago, we set an ambitious goal of getting the men's side in the Football League within 10 years and having a women's side in the Championship within the same period. We've achieved back-to-back promotions in the first 2 seasons, and we're top of the league again with the men's side, and the women won the treble last year and they're top of the league again. And so going to Cameron and Tyler and explaining them the project and what I wanted to do, the fact that they've backed it so well validates what we've been doing. But fundamentally, it doesn't really change much in the short term. It just means I've got a couple of wealthy, experienced businessmen as co-owners of the football club who are going to help and support the ambition, which is ultimately to get our club in the Premier League.
Now, I think, obviously, I'm right in saying that it's currently 8th division. You said back-to-back promotions. We've seen what investments have done at the likes of Wrexham, at the likes of Salford, when big-time players get involved and give you the money. You said there about the dream of getting into the Premier League. How likely is that? And what kind of time frame would you be looking at? Because it's pretty heavy heights up at the Premier League.
Well, look, the difference between taking a club from the bottom of the Football League up to the next division and consecutively all the way up to the Premier League is just, do you have the business model to support having the manager and players to do that? So we've done that in our first 3 seasons and we haven't lost any money. We've actually made money every season. We're a profitable football club and we've achieved the same with our women's side. So we kind of understand the mathematics of winning football leagues. So it's just really about building a business model that can support what we're doing. And we've been pretty successful at that. We've built a fan base which is now global. We have supporters clubs in about 20 different countries. Our crowds are growing. But we've also had this kind of unique strategy whereby we keep the majority of our money in Bitcoin. I have little to no faith in the pound. Our government continues to debase it endlessly. And so we keep all our money in Bitcoin. Our investment from the Winklevoss for 3.58 million is actually now worth 5.1 million because we keep that all in Bitcoin. That gives us a very solid foundation for what we're going to do. So, yeah, look, I'm confident we can do it. Timeline, who knows? People laugh at the idea of the Premier League because we were a 10th tier team with 40 fans, with potentially a 3rd promotion in a row. We're on the path to doing that. I'll stick with the goal that the Football League, League 2 goal was 10 years. If we get promoted this year, we'll have 3 more to do in 7 years. Beyond that, it's really hard to plan. Every division's different, and so I can't really plan for what it's going to be like in League 2. I don't even know what it's like to be in the National League or National League South. So we take it 1 year at a time, but I would stick to the fact that we want to have the men's side in the Football League within 7 years and the women's within the Championship in a similar period.
Peter, other than the cash investment, what are the Winklevoss twins bringing to the table for you guys? What's your relationship like with them so far? Obviously, it's early days. What are you expecting out of that?
Well, I've known Cameron and Tyler for a number of years, so I've got a very good relationship. I don't abuse it. They're very busy people, very successful, built multiple global businesses. But as and when we have important decisions to make for the board, I will go to them. We recently announced a proposed merger with our neighbours, Bedford Town. That was a decision we made as a board. That was the 3 of us coming together and looking at the pros and cons of that merger, and we agreed that together. Day to day, I don't need them. Occasionally, I might call them up and say, look, I've got a company I want to contact maybe as a sponsor, or I've got an infrastructure deal I want to work on. I've got a stadium I need to build. That's when I will be knocking on their door.
Peter, I want to ask, because on the flip side of involvement from celebrities or incredibly rich tycoons, there have been concerns about the involvement of them. Obviously, last year, Elon Musk suggested perhaps potentially buying Liverpool Football Club. And there was a lot of concern from that fan base about potentially his motives. We've seen other rich people invest in clubs over the years. Of course, we mentioned the owners of Wrexham. Do you think that some of your fans might be concerned about the long-term investment and what that might mean for quite a small, I assume, quite a hearty club?
Well, I think you think of it in the wrong way, us being a small club. Think of us more as the size of the town. Bedford has never had a team in the Football League, and yet we're a population of 174,000 people. Luton, another small town and a small club, managed to get into the Premier League. Burnley have been in the Premier League with a population of 90,000. So really, the involvement and support of having US billionaires, successful businessmen, is a gift to Bedford. Us as a small town, this is a real gift because it gives us the foundation, financial foundation to build what we want to do, but it also gives us this international recognition. You're calling me because the Winklevoss have invested. You're not calling me because of our back-to-back promotions. Yeah, all the other news organisations who've reached out are doing so. So that supports us as well. I don't see anything for there to be concerned about at the moment. Like I say, our team is about to, looking at a potential third promotion. Our women's side is super successful, about to do back-to-back promotions. We've invested in local football for boys and girls. We set up a fund locally to help up other sports companies. We host a conference in the town which sells all the hotel rooms. We have people visiting our little town from all over the world to watch the team. So I don't see there's anything to be concerned about here. This is all net positive for the town of Bedford.
Well, Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll monitor the progress of Real Bedford.
I'm a Bolton fan. We're in League One. We might be seeing Real Bedford in the years to come. Who knows?
Come and watch us play.
We'll welcome you if you do come up to League One. Hopefully we'll have been promoted by then as well.
All the best, Peter. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Now, still to come is the future of James Bond in danger. We'll get the scoop with Stephanie Tecci. But first, if you are in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Eastern parts of the Mediterranean experiencing below average temperatures and also some heavy showers at times. These are set to affect Athens and also Santorini, but as we move our way westwards across the Mediterranean, largely mild, largely settled. There are a few showers affecting Nice and parts of the Balearic Islands, but elsewhere across Spain, Portugal, Madeira and also Tenerife, largely settled, and it remains that way as we head into the new week. Sunny spells and the best of the temperatures and a gradual improvement in temperatures across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, next up, showbiz journalist Stephanie Tecci will be here to run us through all of the latest stories of the week. Is the future of 007 in danger? You're not going to say
I won't do it.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, Saturday is definitely the best day of the weekend for most of us. Sunny spells, there will be a few showers and still on the mild side, not quite as high as 17 Celsius, but still temperatures above average. A brief ridge of high pressure today, keeping things settled. However, wet and windy weather will move in tomorrow across the country as the next area of low pressure moves in. Early rain still clearing the far southeast, leaving a legacy of cloud here, but plenty of sunny spells for most. A scattering of showers, but most places staying dry. Showers most frequent across central and northwestern parts of Scotland, still blustery here, but winds lighter for many. Temperatures generally between 9 and 14 Celsius, so just a touch lower than yesterday, but well above the average, which should be 7 to 9 Celsius. As we move through into the evening time, we can still see it's still blustery across northwestern parts of Scotland. Scattered showers here, perhaps a little wintry over the highest ground, some of them on the heavy side, but plenty of clear spells in between. Largely dry for Northern Ireland, Northern England, just the odd shower. Temperatures around 9 or 10 Celsius, and similar across much of England and Wales, actually. Plenty of clear skies to end the day, and as winds fall light, we could see some mist and fog patches forming for a time and the temperatures dipping away into single figures. However, from the west into the early hours, the next system starts to roll in. Cloud, outbreaks of heavy rain, strong winds, gales developing by the end of the night through western coasts and hills. Temperatures are starting to climb back up, 7 or 8 degrees in the west, 2 or 3 degrees for a time in the east. So wet and windy across Northern Ireland, western Scotland to start Sunday morning. This band of rain sweeping its way eastwards as we go through the day. However, there will be some drier, brighter weather across southeast England, holding on to the driest weather here for longest through the day, the rain not reaching here until the evening. Some warnings in force for wind gusts of 50 to 60, locally 70 miles an hour as well.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Thank you so much for sending in your peaks of the week and your dog pictures.
We've got dog pictures.
We have indeed.
Oh,
Jackie
here we
says,
go.
I took my 2 gorgeous girls to Windsor this week. We had a fabulous time. Stop, that's my dream dog. The girls loved all of the attention. Are they homemade jumpers?
Yeah, so for those listening on radio, we've got what look like 2... Are they golden retrievers? They must be golden retrievers, right?
I think so.
2 golden retrievers wearing what look like homemade blue sweaters.
Amazing.
Kath says, my beautiful dog, Belle. Where's Belle?
We've got a picture of Belle.
A picture of Belle, maybe. Yeah, there's Belle. Oh, look at Belle. Oh, fantastic.
That's so lovely. And we've also got a quick one here from Eddie.
Yeah.
Hi, Eddie from Liverpool. My peak of the week is that I'm going to be in a new book, the movie Jaws. The movie nears its 50 years old and ahead of me selling one of the world's largest collections of related memorabilia.
Wow, he's got Jaws memorabilia.
Yeah.
Got a giant
nice.
shark in his house. Anyway, should we move on?
Yes,
because this week, Amazon MGM has paid more than £1 billion for the creative control of the James Bond franchise. So they're striking a deal with the long-term stewards of the films, which is the Broccoli family.
Well, what does this mean for 007 going forwards? Let's bring in Steph. Steph?
Yes.
Big change.
It is very big change, and I don't know if it's going to be a good change, if I'm honest. When Ian Fleming created James Bond in 1932, it was quintessentially supposed to be a British character. Now that Amazon has taken control of it, I don't know how long we will see James Bond being played a British character. Jeff Bezos, he tweeted the other day, he was like, oh, you know, the front runners could be Idris Elba, but of course he's British, but again, he doesn't fit the part of who James Bond is supposed to be. I think going forward, we are going to see the franchise maybe split into TV series, mini James Bond series, maybe potentially a woman could be fronting it as well, because
I've seen a lot.
What happened with the Broccoli's and Michael G. Welsham, they always wanted to keep the integrity of the character and keep it as is. Now Amazon's coming, I think James Bond is actually going to go woke. I think they've got more ideas they want to do with the series, and we're going to be... Usually we wait for the movies every 3-4 years, but now we might just be seeing TV series and spin-offs, which I think personally takes away from the brand and its integrity.
It won't be the same, will it? Now, I like Bond.
Yeah.
You...
I love Bond.
You love Bond. You are a little bit devastated about this, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
Potential for the big changes.
It's like, Steph, like you were saying, I think the concern is that they turn it into a sort of universe franchise.
Definitely. It will lose its heritage, and that's a shame. James Bond is one of those franchises, it's got a cult following, and I always say if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it. And now we're entering this new era of it. It could potentially turn off a lot of fans and lose what it's supposed to be.
What was interesting to me was it's been pointed out that the Broccoli family, I mean, they are part American anyway, and so, you know, this idea that this new American corporate influence is going to come in. MGM, that's a US, but a California-based business. Yeah. So it's not actually being ripped from the cultural...
The only thing that, you know, sources say there has been this tug-of-war between the two in the past, and why they were quite apprehensive with signing the deal is because they've guarded it to make sure it does stay a British institution.
But that's meant no film for 5 years now.
And well, you know what? It's still who is going to play Bond next.
I was just going to say, we're still waiting.
And it's not going to be up to the Broccoli's anymore now. It's going to be up to Amazon. So I think it's going to be a bit of a wild, wild west who we see playing James Bond next.
I read... Wasn't it a story months ago that it was going to be Aaron Taylor-Johnson?
Yeah. It is, but I think...
it's not.
No, I think they're going to get a wild card now. I think when you see people saying it's going to be that person, it tends not to be that person. I think we need a fresh Bond, someone who's off the radar and someone who can really make it their own, like Daniel Craig did successfully.
It's been nearly 20 years since he was chosen. 20 years, actually, exactly, since he was chosen. Unbelievable.
I know, but it goes to show when you get it right with the audience, they will follow it. But if you get it wrong, it can be a big turn-off.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just wait and see, won't we?
Fingers crossed for our 007.
Fingers crossed for the next 007. Honestly, I'm quite apprehensive.
You're going to be a bit devastated if it's
Maybe you can play Bond.
Well, thank you.
You'd make quite a good Bond.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're out as a political correspondent, and you're in your suit...
Peak of the week.
Yeah.
Peak of the week, wouldn't it?
Steph, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
as always. Now, we're going to be back here next week, aren't we?
We shall indeed.
But stay tuned, because the fabulous Dawn Neeson is up next. Thank you for all your wonderful peaks of the week, and thank you for staying with us this Saturday morning live. Have a fabulous weekend.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, Saturday is definitely the best weekend for most of us. Sunny spells, there will be a few showers and still on the mild side, not quite as high as 17 Celsius, but still temperatures above average. A brief ridge of high pressure today, keeping things settled. However, wet and windy weather will move in tomorrow across the country as the next area of low pressure moves in. Early rain still clearing the far southeast, leaving a legacy of cloud here, but plenty of sunny spells for most. A scattering of showers, but most places staying dry. Showers most frequent across central and northwestern parts of Scotland. Still blustery here, but winds lighter for many. Temperatures generally between 9 and 14 Celsius, so just a touch lower than yesterday, but well above the average, which should be 7 to 9 Celsius. As we move through into the evening time, you can still see it's still blustery across northwestern parts of Scotland. Scattered showers here, perhaps a little wintry over the highest ground, some of them on the heavy side, but plenty of clear spells in between. Largely dry for Northern Ireland, Northern England, just the odd shower. Temperatures around 9 or 10 Celsius, and similar across much of England and Wales, actually. Plenty of clear skies to end the day, and as winds fall light, we could see some mist and fog patches forming for a time and the temperatures dipping away into single figures. However, from the west into the early hours, the next system starts to roll in. Cloud, outbreaks of heavy rain, strong winds, gales developing by the end of the night through western coasts and hills. Temperatures are starting to climb back up, 7 or 8 degrees in the west, 2 or 3 degrees for a time in the east. So wet and windy across Northern Ireland, western Scotland to start Sunday morning. This band of rain sweeping its way eastwards as we go through the day. However, there will be some drier, brighter weather across southeast England, holding on to the driest weather here for longest through the day, the rain not reaching here until the evening. Some warnings in force for wind gusts of 50 to 60, locally 70 miles an hour as well.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone